to Galleries of May and to this wonderful artist talk with Judy Blake. Judy is absolutely wonderful, and I'm so pleased to see so many wonderful people, some potters, artists, friends, great people in the community who have come to listen to her work. It is truly fantastic because a lot of these methods, as a lot of you probably know, are kind of rare. You know, very few potters and ceramicists in Canada work with these methods, and in fact, Judy is the only one in the Maritimes who have, you know, she continuously experiments with her work, and you know, it's not unusual to have pieces that have so many different types of processes added in to get this beautiful effect. All of these wonderful questions of how these beautiful vessels are made will be answered, and Judy will talk to us about her work, and she has some wonderful pieces to show us, and processes and everything, and some photographs to give us a bit of a glimpse behind the scenes, because it's hard to fully understand when somebody's just telling you how things are made and what the complexities are. It's so much better to see it happen and to see it come to life as much as we can without actually being in her studio. So, oh, wonderful. So welcome. And just so you know too, if you haven't been here before, our bathrooms are upstairs. There is one just kind of straight ahead, and we also have some water and some tea. The kettle has just hot water for the black teas in the actual pot, and some cookies and brownies for everyone too. So yes, take a seat, enjoy, and yes, here is Judy.
So I'm Judy Blake, and before I get started, I'd just like to say, if you have any questions, please ask. Okay, at any time. So this is the beginning, really. This was my mother's piece that she made at 17 years old in Toronto at Central Tech in 1929. So she was really passionate about clay and always wanted to have her own studio, but never. She got married, had kids, and but when I graduated from the craft school in '78, my sister and I, and my mom, would come from time to time. We had a studio together for 5 years, and my mom really enjoyed that. So it was short-lived, but she enjoyed that. I've been working with clay for almost 47 years, and 20 years, since 2000, I sold my gas kiln and started doing this work, which is what I really love doing. When I was at the craft school, it was in the old army barracks, where the diplomat is now, and I saw an article about the Mata Ortiz in Mexico, northern Mexico, and I just love the surface of these pieces. They were burnished. I don't think they had terracage on them, but they were highly burnished and sensual to touch and just beautiful work. So I experimented and tried a few methods, but wasn't really successful until a few years down the road. Could I bring in that black piece?
Yes.
One of the black pieces?
Oh yes, don't be proud for it. Okay, perfect. Because you have some lovely new pieces that I have in the room.
So this is more of what I first started doing, was the burnished black pieces. So how it begins is that I throw a piece and I use these tools to burnish. Everything is burnished. So this particular piece has been smoothed as much as possible on the wheel, and then I use this tool here, this river stone, and I begin to polish it, and you can see the effect. It's pushing all of the coarser particles beneath the surface. So I do a lot of that, and then afterwards, that takes time. Then I take my hard rib and I smooth that over. And I have to have every scratch and every blemish smooth. Otherwise, when I put the terracage, which is a very, very fine slip, the finest particles of slip, when I spray that on, it will highlight any scratch or hole or any blemish. So I do a lot of this, and I have to go over it several times just to make sure. So it's time consuming, but I enjoy doing it. So I can pass that around so you can feel the difference. And if you drop it, no big deal. So these are some of the tools I use. Brigitte gave me this nice little tool. I also have another one on a handle that I didn't bring. Some various ribs and stones, depending on if I'm doing like carving these pieces here. I might use this to burnish in the carving. So once the piece is dry, burnished and dry, I spray 3 layers of terracage. And the terracage can be problematic because if you get too much on, it will peel off in the firing. And then the pot's ruined. So you have to be really careful that there are no heavy areas. It's very even. And so this is what it looks like. It's a blank canvas before I do any of the firings. Yes?
Is terracage a glaze?
No, it's a slip. It's made with a clay. You add water and a deflocculant, which means something to separate the clay and the heavy particles. So you mix it all up and let it sit for, I don't know, a couple of days, an hour, I don't know. That's not true. You let it sit overnight. And then you siphon off the top layer, not the water layer and not the heavy at the bottom, but and it gives you this beautiful silky slip. It's already burnished, but this terracage will give you, it makes the colors more intense than if you didn't have spray it with terracage. So this is what it looks like when it's first fired. So.
Judy, you mentioned you have to be so careful and so there are no imperfections before you spray. If you sprayed and there was an imperfection, can you correct it?
No.
You can't.
No, unless you wipe it all off. But see, the problem is the piece is hard by then it's dry, so you can't burnish it again. So it's either you put up with the imperfection, which I don't like. It takes away from the whole idea.
We have one more question, Judy.
Yeah.
When you say siphons,
You know, like you wrap it off like you were doing wine or beer, or you know, you have a hose and you suck it in and it comes out. So,
Judy, this is probably a stupid question, but I'm not a potter, so why is it called a slip? Why is it called what?
well, wet clay is Karen. Wet clay is because it's
we know what
wet
it is.
clay.
Yeah.
Wet clay, I don't know.
It's very clay. It's slippery, I guess.
Because it slips off.
Well, it's
I've
not.
always wondered
It's
why
not
it's
the
called
dry. It's just it's terracage. Terracage lato. Anyway, I was told that's an interesting question. So I also have I brought a saggar in. So this is what I fire my saggar pieces in, which are fired in two enclosed pieces like an egg. And I fill it with sawdust. And it's a different method. It's unpredictable. I've never, even though I put the similar materials in each firing, I can't predict what will come out. It's serendipity, really. I know that I'll get some pinks, maybe some grays. This is, I soak, there's a, that's just showing my film. Yeah. I use sawdust in everything. This is my lovely studio assistant who is very lazy most of the time. But she likes to give me moral support. But
What kind of clay are you using?
I use earthenware.
Earthenware?
White earthenware and red earthenware, low temperature. And I use combustible materials, which I soak straw and I soak or grasses in salt, which gives you pink colors. the glaze, and you can get blues and sometimes a red from the copper, which I soak in as well. I also do ochre and iron, which can give you the brownish colors. And then I put sawdust in the bottom, the straw or grass, and put that in the saggar, and then it's covered over like this. And then it's, whoops.
Sophie.
Oh, sorry, I was just
It's going with it, yeah, there's the kiln, I'm just throwing in some sawdust, and I use two large propane tanks to fire, so you could probably move on to this one, there's that. And then we have a fiberglass lid that we put on. This is at the end of the firing when I put some wood in the bottom to give it reduction, which causes a lot of smoke and it will change the color. I get different varying results from its time, temperature, and atmosphere. If the firing is slower, I might get different results. If it's humid or rainy, and the atmosphere doesn't have as much reduction, then I just never know. But I can refire the pieces, the saggar pieces.
Excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
is the covering to protect, or does it change the coloring in any way?
It can. You can either have it closed. This could be a closed saggar, or I could have one with a hole in the top or something. It would let. I'm not really sure, but it does change it somehow. Maybe more of the atmosphere, the reduction atmosphere in the kiln changes the coloring. It's
How
hard to
does
tell.
how does the firing compare to an electric kiln with what you're doing with wood and with propane?
Well, there's a lot more smoke and carbon
Yeah.
in the atmosphere where it's very clean in an electric kiln. So I should probably, that is,
Would you say it's more chancy, it's more up to chance?
yes,
Yeah.
happenstance, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Then there's this.
That's an impossible shape to throw.
Oh, this just shows when I have my steam pod show. Sometimes I've added a color to a colored terracage to the piece, but it needs more depth. So I'll just give it a little smoking like that. It's, it just adds a little something to it, gives it more depth. So this is, I didn't have very many photos of the process. It's really hard, yes. It's really hard to, Rick is usually the guy that takes he's the brave guy that takes the piece out of the kiln with the kiln tongs, and it's very hot. And then I'm ready to throw the sawdust or put the can on top of it. And so it's not really, we need a third person to take pictures, but, so this is covered with a layer of resist slip. So the slip goes on to prevent the raku glaze, which melts at a certain temperature, from adhering to the piece. So it acts as a resist. So you can see here that the slip and the glaze are coming off. I'm using a metal rib to kind of chip it off. So that comes off, and then sometimes this is where it's gotten a little hot, so it's harder, the glaze is melted more than is optimal, but it's harder to get off, so it takes a bit more scraping. And then there's the scrubbing to get the slip off it, because there's lots of slip left on it still. Otherwise it would be this nice smooth, it's still kind of matte. So there's lots of scrubbing, you have to get it in the right light to see that there's no little bits of slip here and there. And then it's waxed. All my pieces are waxed because they're porous. And just to prevent the, if you're handling it, to prevent oils in your hands.
What kind of wax, Judy?
I just use paste wax.
Mhm.
Yeah. It gives a nice soft feel.
And Judy, when you're scraping off, is there a pretty good chance that you could chip?
Mhm.
Oh, boy.
So that's-
So you're
Yeah.
scraping very easily.
Yeah, and sometimes, when you're taking it out of the kiln, it's red hot, and putting it in the sawdust, it can crack, it just depends. So this clay body works pretty well. This is a whiter thinner. The red is a tighter body, and it always cracks, so I don't use it for that purpose, for this purpose. The other piece, I should have brought in the sodium silicate piece, which is gone, right? Yes.
So it is at the moment, sorry.
Yeah, I would have known I could have brought one in. Yes. So this is done with sodium silicate, which is water glass they use for detergent and soaps and things, and it's a very thick, viscous material. So when I throw a cylinder, and I'll mark it off here and down below, because I like to burnish this part. I don't want it to be textured all the way up. So then you dry it with a heat gun or a hair dryer, and you can't touch the outside after that. You have to expand it all with one hand from the inside. So it's rather precarious. I lost quite a few in the beginning trying it out, but I don't do a lot of it, but I really like to move to the next. There it is, smoke fire. You wouldn't do it in a saggar fire because it would be too busy. It's too, it has enough going on, texture. So I call it kind of the bark texture. I like or cracked earth. Anyway, that's how that process is done.
Do those spirals come naturally?
Yes, as you expand it out, because you're putting it on a straight cylinder, and then you expand it from inside, and as it's going around, it makes those spirals, and some, depending, can really be. You also, this is tricky too, because if it is too thin, this can open up in these big cracks here, it can open up. So it's a precarious process all around, but I love doing it, and I think that's about the end of what I have to say. Anything else? Any more questions? Any other questions? Yes?
What are you focusing on for the future? Like, you've accomplished and done so many things, or do you have a new form, a new shape, a new glaze, or?
Right now, I don't glaze.
Okay.
Right now, I'm going back to, I have a show coming up next, well, I have a show at Axe in September, and then one next summer at St. John Art Center. So I'm doing large vessels, large forms. I'm going back to the vessel form after all that time I spent on seed pods. So I always love the vessel form, so that's what I'm doing now. And I'm trying to throw large, but it's hard. My hands are suffering, and yeah, so it's, but I'm just slower than I used to be. Anything else?
How many pieces do you fire each time? Does it depend on the size, of course?
In a saggar?
Yes.
In a saggar firing, because they're big, and you also have the saggar that makes it even bigger, I probably would fire 4 or 5 large pieces. Yeah, it's not many in that, and then these are fired one at a time. And these are fired in a saggar as well, plus pieces in sawdust. So,
The piece that you were polishing, showing the gray piece that you passed around, and you said it takes a lot of time to do that. How long would it take to get that to a point where you say she's good to go?
About 3 years.
before it gets to
Parents said 3 years.
Well, just till it looks like it's finished. or before it's dry, because if it has any, scratches in it, it has to be sponged and worked again, you know, just till it's all smooth and there are no, because the terracage will just highlight any mark that, and it takes away, it detracts from the beautiful surface.
So would you do it for a while and then put it down and go to something else and then come back to it?
Well, I do it
Or-
in stages, because
Yeah.
when I first finish trimming in the bottom, I'll start to, I use these ribs just to kind of, it's a bit wetter then, so
Right.
it's too soft to use the stone. So I'll use this to smooth it. And it's not for everyone. If you don't have patience for this, Karen. I did a workshop years ago and Karen hated it.
You done yet?
You know, I think you have the approach of a silversmith. It never occurred to me because the surface you're trying to
Yeah.
achieve is what silversmiths do, is trying to get
Right.
a flawless, shiny thing with no scratches. And I never knew that that's to the extent that you would go.
No, really.
No, it's a lot of work.
Yes, it is a lot of work. And I actually, I thought that when I had carpal tunnel surgery 2 years ago on my left hand, but, and I thought it was from burnishing, but I just hold with this hand.
It's the weight,
I think
carrying
it's,
the weight.
I don't think so. I think it's throwing, because you're,
You're pushing.
this
The
hand
position
is
of your
like
hand.
this all the time, you know, and I think it's just here. Yeah, I mean, the burnishing, holding in one position too probably doesn't help, but yeah, it's true.
So, sorry, Judy, you spray the terracage?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah. Or I sponge it,
Oh,
depending, it gives a different effect. 'Cause if you sponge it, you'll see the little dots, sort of sponge marks. I like that effect. I did that a lot on the seed pods.
That was
You
such
can
a
brush
great
it
show,
off.
by the way. It was a brilliant show, your
Thank
exhibition.
you. Pardon me?
Is that completely enclosed?
This one? This one? It has a hole in the bottom. I think it would blow up.
That's what I was
Yes,
reading.
yeah. You always put a hole in the bottom if it's closed. Yeah.
And for your sawdust, might be a silly question, but does it matter what type of wood is used, like
Yes.
hardwood versus, oh, very good,
Yeah,
okay.
you get different effects. Sawdust, the softwood gives a darker color, and the finer sawdust gives you blacker effects. Coarser shavings give a more mottled effect, and different woods will give you different colors as well. Yeah.
Where do you find your sawdust? You got Rick cutting up boards?
No, I went to a woodworker in Belle Isle, and he had many bags, huge bags of sawdust. And not only do I have to dry it out, I have to sieve it, because he just scoops it up from the floor, and it has powdered sawdust in it, and that's no good for what I do. Powdered would make it sticky. It's just not good. I need a coarser. Yes?
Judy, I had a question. In our case over there, we have one vessel that has like a leaf pattern on it.
Yes, I will.
Yeah. How do you get that? Because we were talking about it at the opening the other night, and I thought, come to see Judy. She'll tell you.
I'll grab this so you can see.
That's kind of like my secret sauce.
Oh, sorry. Uh-oh. Just say it very briefly.
I kind of came across that. There was in a book on satisfying, I saw this method. It wasn't with the fern, but I thought, I wonder if I could use the fern.
So it has, yes, the ferns that are all on the top. And we have another vessel in the back as well, which is a bit larger, and it also has this lovely effect as well.
So do I have to say?
No. It's a mystery.
Yes.
If you
You
tell
have to
us,
have
you'll
some
have to kill us all.
You have to have some history.
so Judy, speaking of the fine sawdust and all the scrapings off the floor, would there be particles, like, you never know what's on the shop's floor, whether there's metal or plastic or whatever? Would there be some material that would destroy it, that if you were firing it in that sawdust?
If it were metal, I don't think it would matter because the sawdust doesn't get that hot. It just smolders away. You just light it off with newspaper at the top and it just smokes, it burns down and smolders around the piece and leaves different, grays, blacks, sometimes greens.
That's not still there, but it's just not affected the woodworking shop.
Yeah.
So you have to-
Yeah, where I get the sawdust, he's just a woodworker without, he's not doing metal or anything. But he also uses, he gets some exotic woods in St. John, and so I've had some nice, he does charcuterie boards and things, and, he's used olive wood and things. I don't know, it's just a mixture of various kinds of sawdust, or shavings, but it's very nice wood, and I have lots of it, it'll last me forever. So, I used to like gathering the materials, but it's a lot of work now. Yeah. Anything else?
I just have a question. So, you told me that you only fire in summer because of the
Summer
weather.
and fall.
But in winter, are you making your large vessels?
Yeah. I usually do a lot of throwing in the winter time. That's my main time. And once in a while I work away in the summer, but I'm trying, I don't make that much, so I'm not firing towards lots of work. So, I still have time to throw in the summer. Studio's kind of warm these days.
The birds, that first bird show,
Yeah.
when you fire all of your own.
That's where, I had a show in London, Ontario, and it was a bird show, and I'd never made large birds, I was making small birds. And so I was trying all kinds of methods, and, they're not symmetrical, so I had to kind of hand build the saggars. And thankfully, that day, I was asked to do the show in October, and the show was in April. So I had to have enough work and fire it have it there for the 1st of April. So it was, thank God it was a mild winter. We hardly had any snow in the spring, early spring, and so we were able to get it together. Nerve-wracking, but.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Is there one piece in the process that you go through that you enjoy more than the other?
Throwing. Throwing and burnishing. I love making form, and I love burnishing. I have a hard time, I don't know if it's that way when you're throwing and then you go to glazing. I have a hard time transitioning. I just want to keep making, but then you have to fire it, so it takes me a while to get around to doing that, but once I get into the swing of it, it's almost like I have to relearn, because I forget from the fall. I have lots of notes and things, but I kind of have to get back into the practice of it, of firing in the spring, after time away, so, yeah.
What is the crucial part in the firing for any potter, in terms of when you put the piece in the kiln and, you're sitting there and you're biting your nails, what would be the crucial point in that, the time? And while the piece is in the kiln, that there's certain.
Well, you don't want to fire it too quickly. You want it to warm up slowly. And then once it's at a certain point, don't ask me what that is. I forgot. Certain temperature, then you can turn up the burners or turn up the kiln so it goes faster. What were you going to say, Margie?
I was just going to say there's a certain pattern on one side
Mhm.
of this. And so when that happens, are you
idea of what's gonna happen.
Well, there's one here, there's existing 30, there's one, there's another one at the top, and then there's another one down below.
Here?
And just another one there.
It's such a beautiful piece.
It is really, it's so light.
There's here,
Yes.
here,
Yeah.
yes. It started
Yeah,
here, and here, and here.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, I really don't, I really
No.
can't predict what it will be. If the glaze is thicker, then you may have a thicker, a bigger crackle. The thinner the glaze, the smaller the crackle, but I thought I had more, I don't know. It's just unpredictable.
But I remember you
Happenstance.
showed me years ago how this, you had it on your arm. And how this from the inside, yeah,
Yeah,
that this expanded.
yes.
And that was the way you do it. I don't know how you can do it and hold it.
Well,
time, you know.
it also helps that it's firm because you've dried the slip on the outside, the
Right,
sodium silicate,
right.
so the piece is fairly, it's not hard, but it's firm, so it's not really soft clay anymore, so it stands up to you pushing it out.
Right.
Sometimes it can still go up the
Right,
rails, but, you know, yeah.
Anyway.
It's magic.
Magic.
I wish it were.
What's the piece that's taken you the longest, like that took you a month or 2 months or something to do? Has there been a really huge piece that took hours and hours of
Well,
work?
there was one that, did you tell her about that, Claire? There was one piece that I woke up one night and I was thinking, how I'd carve leaves on it. It was a tall piece about like this, bottle form. And how I should carve leaves all over it and burnish it. And so I started, it took me ages to carve the leaves. And then I realized, oh my God, I have to burnish this. And as I said, with the terracage, you can't have any scratches or anything. So I was getting to the point, it was a few days, and I still hadn't finished burnishing, and it was starting to get dry, and I thought, oh. So I thought, well, I will fire it. I'll let it dry, and I'll fire it, and then I'll sand it. Because what I should have done was to have sponged it to get rid of some of the marks, but I didn't. So I fired it, and then I started sanding it. And I still haven't finished it. It's 10 days. Anyway, I learned my lesson. So that's probably a piece that's taken me the longest. Yeah. Otherwise, you know.
Very good. Well, if you have any other questions, we'll be around here for a little bit. But of course, if you do have some more, please feel free to ask them now. But yes, thank you so much, Judy, for giving this fantastic talk, and thank you to everyone for coming. So